The second season of the Tower of God anime introduced a lot of new characters, and I want to break down what their names are, what their purpose is, and just get to know them a little bit more as we prepare to dive into the workshop battle section of season 2. Also, comment your favorite new Tower of God character in the comments below. I'm very curious to know, especially if you're an anime only, like what are your thoughts and feelings towards these new characters, especially which one might be your favorite. We'll be covering minor spoilers up through episode 9 of the anime, so be warned, watch those episodes if you're worried about minor spoilers. Probably the craziest thing that season 2 did was introduce an entirely new team of main characters, and heading that new kind of cast and team of main characters is Ja Wangnan, who is my personal favorite character in all of Tower of God. We're in season 3, hundreds and hundreds of chapters in the manhwa. He remains my favorite character, and it's just because he isn't strong at all. We see Wangnan, he's kind of weak. He's even a bit of a coward at first. He's willing to kind of do these like dirty tactics, especially you see it in the manhwa a lot. He's kind of willing to do these like cheap tactics to advance because he lost all his friends in the climb. They all climbed on without him. He was left behind, and yet he wants to become king of the tower, and to do this, he makes decisions that at the cost of himself, at the cost of his revenge, at the cost of his own life, or near as much sometimes, and at the cost of his own desire. It's so good. He develops so much throughout the series, and he becomes this kind of leader-like figure through his charisma and energy and determination rather than his strength and power, which is a great contrast to Viol. Speaking of which, Viol is here. If you've watched episode 9, you know who he really is. He's around, and I think my favorite part about Viol is his presence on Team Sweet and Sour. He's being forced by Fug to take on new teammates in order to protect his old teammates, in order for him to be like this slayer candidate of Fug, a potential killer of Jihad and the 10 family heads. So they're forcing him there. He may look all emo and edgy, but in reality, he's the same Bomb from season 1. It's just that now he puts on this persona because if he fails even a single test, then all of his friends die. And that's why he goes to the extremes of making sure that he never has teammates until Wangnan forces it and kind of tricks Viol into accepting them as teammates. Another main character and another personal favorite of mine is Yan Iwa, who is from one of the great families like Kun from season 1. Her family is known for fire prowess, and even Iwa's flames, as a regular, they're powerful enough that some rankers struggle to contain them and control them. And Iwa herself is unable to use her flames in a controllable way. She's kind of like a wildfire causer, you know? She's always failing tests because she's burning her teammates and incinerating them on accident. And it's kind of a running joke that she's terrible at cooking because of it. And a big part of her character is finding out that her family isn't as glorious as she thinks, and that Fug, specifically Viol, isn't as bad as she thinks. She has to get rid of stereotypes. It's not about families versus Fug. It's not about good and bad. It's a lot more complicated than that. And I think a lot of great growth comes out of Iwa because of it. Hor-Yang and Arkraptor are kind of the dads of the group, or more so Arkraptor, who literally lost his daughter at some point in his past, and he's climbing to find her. And he has this relationship with Misang because of it, who's this like crybaby girl, and she's there with her cousin Goseng, who Hor-Yang has a crush on, and they all create a really cool dynamic. They all get really good scenes, and they're sort of like the backbone of Sweet and Sour, where not all of them are particularly super strong, except for Hor-Yang, who does have this devil-like ability and the ability to kind of swap between forms of fighting, which is really cool. But you know, Arkraptor and Goseng, they have their strengths, right? Lighthouses and Arkraptor's like Umbrella Spear, but they're more there to act as like a family. Team Sweet and Sour, unlike Bomb's team in season 1, a couple weeks maybe, Team Sweet and Sour, they spend years together climbing. So they develop a bond that it doesn't surpass Bomb's relationship with Kun and Rak by any means, but they develop like a family. They sleep in the same room. They're all, they're cooking together. They're shopping together. These things that Viol never got to do with Kun and Rak. And even though Kun and Rak and the others on his friends list, they were his first impression and nothing will ever replace them, there's something very special about Sweet and Sour. None of them are like crazy strong. It's all together. They're kind of a wacky, out of nowhere team. And that's what makes them special. They're just normal people who all got put together to climb, and I love them for that. I forgot about Prince. I'm so sorry, Prince. I love Prince. He starts out as a scumbag, but eventually you find out he's just a kid. He befriends Misang before long. strong, and he looks up to Horyang. He respects him like a big brother or something. And Prince is great. He also gets a lot of good development. He starts out, again, total scumbag, but deep down, he's not that bad of a guy. But you've also got another team that was newly introduced in season 2, that being Kun's new team. We learn that Kun specifically created and curated a new team of regulars, while the other team, Team Shibisu with Endorsi, Anak, and Laro and all of them, they keep climbing separately. We don't know about Rak. Rak kind of splits off from the two groups in general, but as far as Kun's new team, they're acting as a kind of investigative team that's going to be in more danger. Kun even kind of refers to them as a little more disposable than his close friends from Team Shibisu. They're really strong in their own right. You've got Kun Ran, who's a member of the Kun family, like Aguero. You've got Nobik, who is he has a rivalry with Ran, which is quite funny, and there's some interesting scenes there, but they also work really well as a duo, so it's a cool dichotomy. You also have Dan, who is the newest member of the team. I love Dan. I'm not gonna spoil the Dan storyline, but let me tell you, do not sleep on Dan, okay? I know he's like some random guy. He's got like super speedy powers, like cool, right? He's our POV character into Team Kun for the most part. He gets some of the most amazing scenes in Tower of God. I love Dan with all my... I had a dream about Dan the other night. That's how much I love Dan. And then Apple, Michael, and Gyatang are a little more in the background. Apple is a bit more of a kind of... She does a lot of the research, lighthouse, and scout abilities. She does both. You got Michael, who's the doctor, and you got Gyatang, who's the spear bearer with his little shuriken. So they're cool too. But we also got to meet some new characters from Fug. As a reminder, Fug is a kind of cult-like organization whose goal is to take down Jihad and the families, specifically the family heads. They've existed for thousands of years, and there's a lot of cool lore about how they were created, but all you gotta know is that they're crafting and curating Slayer candidates to become Slayers, specifically Viol being their Slayer candidate currently. But there's also a character who recently became a Slayer named Karaka, and his master, Jin Sung, who is also Bomb's martial arts master. Karaka is the newest Slayer, and he's very powerful and very mysterious, and he has this kind of resentment towards Bomb a little bit. And it's kind of unclear, is it fueled because he shares a master with Bomb, being Jin Sung being this kind of father-like figure to Bomb? He is strict, right? He kind of threatens to kill Team Sweet and Sour because they're not really strong until Wang Nan and company win him over. Because Wang Nan and company are like changing Viol for the better, Jin Sung realizes that it's not all about power and strength, it's about making a difference and making Viol happy, right? So good. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent. And they're of course joined by Hua Ryun from season 1, who is Bomb's personal guide, who's able to see the best path for Bomb in the tower. They're kind of semi-prophetic people who are guides, like Evan from season 1 as well with Yuri. They're kind of prophetic people. They can kind of see the future in little glimpses, or at least they can see what is your best path in different respects, and the visions are different depending on if you're a red witch or a silver dwarf. Regardless, that's Fug. We're gonna get a lot more on Fug in the workshop battle, so pay attention to these characters in that respect as well. But you also have what is probably the most important new character, and I wanna make sure people understand how important this new character really is, and that's Yurik Mizuno. As a reminder, there are people known as irregulars who were not chosen by the tower. They actually come from outside the tower, and they chose to enter it themselves. The tower didn't choose them. He didn't choose them, right? People like Kun and Rak and Endorsi, they all already lived in the tower, but now when they're chosen, now they have to take tests to become rankers, right? Or at least get a job somewhere. But people like Bomb and Rachel come from outside. That's what marks them as irregulars. They're not bound by the tower's rules. That's why it was such a big deal for Bomb to reveal that in season 1. Aside from Jihad and the 10 family heads, who are irregulars, but they're sort of like a special, they were the first people to enter from the outside, supposedly. Aside from them, you only have Bomb and Rachel, and then 2 other individuals who I won't mention here, but they were briefly mentioned in season 1, and Yurik Mizuno. The official rankings as far as like how you stand in the tower go like this. You've got the head of the Ha family, the head of the Kun family, the head of the Arie family, and then above them is Yurik Mizuno. the only active person in the tower that is stronger or at least higher ranked than Yurik is Jihad himself. The king of the tower is the only one stronger or at least higher ranked than this guy. This dude is a big deal. He comes from outside and he's the member of his own organization that wants to leave the tower. They don't care about the politics of killing the family heads. They want to leave because Yurik knows how amazing the outside world is. And he runs into Viol and Team Sweet and Sour totally on accident, total coincidence in the Zigana stuff during the Zigana test. And it results in this awesome battle where we get to see Yurik recognizing Viol's potential, and we get to see Viol sacrificing himself for Misang while still leaving the smallest of scratches on Yurik's cheek. All that stuff is so important. Yurik is a very important character. He's kind of briefly introduced just because of the nature of things, but he is a character you're going to want to remember. And if you can't remember his name, just look at his back tattoo. It says his name right there. Those are the major players of season 2 that were newly introduced, but characters like Love even, I would recommend remembering these characters. SIU, the author of Tower of God, does a really good job of making sure every introduced character feels like they matter. And of course, that applies to the season 1 characters. I know a lot of people can miss the season 1 characters because suddenly you start season 2 and there's all these new characters. Where are everybody from season 1? But I promise you, the season 1 characters also get their time to shine. It's just that these season 2 characters matter quite a lot to the story and development of the season 1 characters too, specifically Bomb. And eventually it results in an amazing cast of both season 1 and 2 characters. So even though you might miss them right away, they absolutely play a massive role going forward in the series. So yeah, those are the newly introduced characters in season 2. Again, let me know which one is your favorite in the comments down below. We'd love to see which characters you're kind of fond of, which ones you want to see more of. If you have any theories, anime onlys, please put them in the comments down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in season 2. Peace!